Hey guys, today we're going to translate sine and cosine functions. We can translate these trigonometric functions horizontally and vertically, just like we have with other functions we've dealt with. First one we're going to talk about is a horizontal shift. This is called a phase shift, and it will be inside our parentheses. If it's a minus h, that means we move right h units, and if it's an f of x plus h, that means we're going to go to the left h units. So here's an example. We're going to state the phase shift and then also graph. So we have sine of x minus pi halves. Minus means we're going to the right, pi over 2 units. So phase shift right, that many units, and now we need to graph. So sine, remember, starts at your origin, and then we know we need to take that and move it to the right, pi halves. So we're going to shift our starting point to the right. We know we've done nothing with our period, so our period is still 2 pi, so we'll end over here at, at 5 pi halves. So we know every pi units, we're going to hit the origin, or the x-axis again, and then every pi halves unit, we will be either at our maximum or our minimum. Our amplitude is still 1, so we start over here at pi halves, up to 1, back to the x-axis, down to -1, and now we've completed one cycle when we end up here at 5 pi halves, comma 0. And then you could just keep going the length of your x-axis. So there would be our sine function shifted to the right, pi halves units. Here's another one. This time we're going to do cosine of x plus pi. So this time we're going to move left pi units. So you can either put negative pi, or I honestly would prefer pi units to the left. So make sure you make note of that. That should really say pi units to the left. So cosine starts at 1 on the y-axis. So we're going to take that 1 and move it to the left pi units. So there's our starting point. Our period is still 2 pi, so we're going to go from negative pi to positive pi. That would be a distance of 2 pi. So we know we're going to start and end in the same spot, so up at 1. We know halfway between that, so on the y-axis we would be down at our minimum, which is -1. And then we cross the x-axis halfway between negative pi and 0. So at negative pi halves and then pi halves. So again, there between negative pi and pi is one cycle, and then you can just continue the pattern to the left of negative pi and pi. Okay, vertically shift is always attached to the end of the function, so plus k would move up, minus k would move down. Similar idea, we're going to describe our shift and then graph it. So this would be going down 1. So we're going to take our cosine, instead of starting at 1, it's going to start down at 0. This time the center of our function is at -1, and our minimum value would be at -2. So we're really taking that cosine function and shifting it down 1 unit, all points. Again, period's still 2 pi, so we go from 0 to 2 pi. That gives us one cycle, and we could go 0 to -2 pi for a cycle as well. Okay, here are two different shifts at one time. So we have a phase shift where we go left pi units and then we go up 2 units. This is sine, so we normally start at our origin. We're going to go to the left pi units and then up 2 units. So here is our starting point. Normally we start here. We're going to go left pi and up 2. So here is our starting point. We know we need to increase. Our amplitude's still 1, so we go from 2 to 3, back down to the center of our function, down to the minimum value, and then keep our cycle going. Okay, here is just a lot of the information we talked about the last couple days in one place. So a sine of b times x minus h plus k, and then a times cosine of b x minus h plus k. So remember, x always has to be in radians. Your amplitude is going to be the absolute value of a. Your period for sine and cosine will always be 2 pi over b. H is a horizontal shift, also called a phase shift, and then k is where you go up or down. Last example, we're going to jam all that stuff together in one thing. So we're going to have negative 2 sine of a half times x plus h, all minus 1. First thing we want to talk about is our amplitude. Absolute value of that a value means we have an amplitude of 2. That negative means that we reflect over the x-axis. And then inside, our period would be 2 pi over a half. Well, that becomes 4 pi. Phase shift, that plus pi means we're going to go left pi units, and then minus 1 is down 1. So sine normally starts at the origin. We're going to go left pi and down 1. There's our starting point. Normally sine goes from the origin up, but since it's a negative, we're going to go down from our starting point. So we went left pi units, down 1. Now we're going to reflect down. Our amplitude was 2, so when we hit the y-axis, we have to be down 2 units at this negative 3. When we get back to pi, we're back up to negative 1. And then we have to increase 2 from there to get us up to 1. Okay, so our center of our function is right here at y equals negative 1. So that's kind of your middle. So you start at the middle, down to your minimum, back to your middle, up to your maximum, and down to your center again. Negative pi to 3 pi is one entire cycle. That is a period of 4 pi.